with you.
Okay, hang on. I hope we're live. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I had a banner up in front. Welcome. If you're just listening, you were listening to the Angel Rock Alive. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. I'm going to invite you right now to come join us over on UPRN's YouTube channel, which is UFO Paranormal Radio. I think we have UFO Gods and extraterrestrials, and the other one I think is International Public Radio. But if you go to UFO Paranormal Radio, you should find us. We're also on Facebook. We're on Twitch. So if you've never been to my show, welcome. I say I cover all aspects of the supernatural, whether it's the UFOs, ETs. Sometimes we talk about the actual paranormal, and then because I'm a light worker, we also talk about the power of the mind, power of positivity, and then I throw some truth seeking and activism in there. So I kind of cover a whole spectrum. And if you're returning, welcome. We do have some regulars that show up here, and I really appreciate your support. I try to involve anybody that's in the chat room as part of the discussion. A little bit about myself: I'm a Canadian psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, an Akashic Records practitioner, a spiritual teacher and mentor, and I'm also a registered nurse. Now, tonight, I always have interesting guests for you guys. You know this. And this gentleman, I have to give a huge shout out to our mutual friend, Juan Antonio Manzur, who has also been on this show before. Hey, Janie, welcome. I see you. You're on Facebook. Good thing Facebook's showing up tonight. It didn't last week. But
Oh,
I'm going to
that's
get
great.
into his bio because Juan introduced us. And thank God this wonderful gentleman that we have here before us did not give up on me because I am so crazy busy, as most of you know that know me personally. But let me tell you all about his impressive, I want to say bio, I guess. I was going to say resume. It's not a resume. We're not doing a job tonight. Okay, since his rude awakening at 20 years old, Don Gies has decided to walk the road less traveled, seeking the truth and finding the purpose and meaning of life. For 8 years, Don has studied the world and studied many disciplines of esotericism, consciousness, psychology, and personal development. He is a personal transformational life coach that works with people from all over the world. He specializes in understanding the relationship between the head and the heart and how it interfaces with the field of consciousness. He currently resides in, I hope I get this right, Villa Cambamba. I'm going to say
Vilcabamba.
thank you.
Vilcabamba. There you go.
Ecuador, where he hosts high end retreats for seekers looking to heal their trauma and find to fulfill their life's purpose. He is currently working with New York Times bestseller Nori Huddle, who I have to meet. She looks like an amazing lady, on a virtual summit series project called Help Tip the Global Domino Summit to Create Heaven on Earth, where he and Nori interview leading experts all over the world on how we can create heaven on earth in this lifetime. Now, I've got also in this bio places to get a hold of Don, but I always give my guests time at the end of the show so where
No
they
worries.
can find them. Welcome, Don. I'm so glad to have you on tonight. How are
Yes,
you?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really fired up, and it
Are
feels
you?
so good. Oh yeah, absolutely. I always joke with people. It's like every time I get on, I just feel like this love descend upon me. I'm like, let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about helping the world. I
Well,
just get so
people need
excited.
it because I'm going to be honest with you. I normally don't promote I promote it everywhere. My show, I'm in lots of different groups for podcasts. I've met some great people that way,
Yeah.
but I'm in a lot of private chat groups on Facebook Messenger. And one of them is for independent podcasters, independent journalists from around the world. There's one I'm in locally, one from Australia, and one that's kind of got a mix of just regular people that are into spirituality. And I'm meeting so many people that are feeling so helpless, hopeless, disheartened, and in fear. So I shared it tonight saying, we're going to leave you with some good feelings. But as I always start my show, let's start at the beginning because you are very young for where you are and the knowledge that you have and what you're doing. So let's start at the beginning as I always do
Yeah,
because we
sure.
mentioned this in your bio, this awakening you had. Are you comfortable sharing that?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I wasn't for a long period of time until I said I
Oh,
need to.
like I'm 56, Dawn. Like, come on,
Yeah,
there's a big
okay,
difference.
okay,
What are
yeah,
you,
yeah,
28? Like,
yeah,
it's pretty
yeah.
young. to be
Yeah,
where you are and the awakening that you've had. And it's pretty unique because I actually listened to quite a few of the podcasts that you sent me and got to know a little bit more. And I think it's a fascinating story if you're comfortable sharing it.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
certainly a fascinating story, and I kind of now use it as like a clickbait
Hmm.
kind of thing, which it's, in a way it's become a blessing in disguise.
Hmm.
Okay, so when I was around 20 years old,
Hmm.
I was introduced to a very interesting person. I used to be a DJ at a local dive bar,
Hmm.
and I went in there, and without telling too much of the details of that story, because that's quite an interesting story, I met this man. I'm still friends with him, and he was reading a book by Jim Keith. And
Hmm.
for those who are in the conspiracy world for a long time, Jim Keith was one of the original people to write about the projects, the underground projects that the U.S. government was doing, namely, you know, mind control projects and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
MK Ultra, right?
MK Ultra,
Hmm.
precisely.
Hmm.
And so I went up to this guy and I said, "That's a very interesting book to be reading in public."
Yeah.
And he said, "You know what? I do it on purpose."
Hmm.
So as a good tip of advice for our listeners, read very interesting books in public
Or just
because
carry them and kind of make sure that you look like you're reading and the cover's out, right?
that's right. Yeah,
Hmm.
because the people that know what's up, they'll come up to you and say, "Hey, what are you reading? That's a great book." And then you'll find really cool people doing that. I've met a lot of
Hmm.
amazing people just by reading interesting books in public. So I went up to him and this is a kind of an interesting tidbit that I don't think I mentioned in any other podcast, but I
Ooh, an
at the time,
exclusive.
yeah, an exclusive. You get the exclusive.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, sure, of course.
Hmm.
So I at the time I was just awakening to the power of my brain and consciousness and how it interfaces with the field. I'm sure a lot of people know about the law of attraction. I'm not a big fan of pop law of attraction. There's a whole lot more
Hmm.
to it and much, much, much more nuance to it. But so I was talking to this gentleman that I met, and I was talking about, oh yeah, I'm learning about this stuff. It's interesting stuff. And he says, oh okay, so then you must know Bob Proctor, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you know Bob Proctor,
I know
right?
who Bob Proctor is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Bob Proctor is very famous within the subconscious programming field and everything. And I said, yeah, of course, Bobby P.
Yeah. Well, he was on the law of attraction, right? We had
Of
some of
course,
our
yeah,
big
yeah,
spiritual guru. I keep doing that. I never do this, and I've done it 3 times. But the spirituality field, if you will, some of the bigger
yeah,
names were in that
sure,
movie.
yeah, yeah. Most people got to know of his work through the movie and the book, The Secret.
Hmm.
And yeah, and actually, I'm currently reading Napoleon Hill's Law of Success in 16 Lessons. I highly recommend this one if you want to.
Interesting.
It's amazing. Yeah. So basically, the information that Napoleon Hill wrote about was then passed on to a guy named Earl Nightingale, and
Hmm.
then Earl Nightingale passed it on to Bob Proctor. So
Okay.
Bob Proctor's knowledge of how the stuff works comes from the direct lineage of that. Anyway, that's a side tangent. But I was talking to this gentleman who I was just met, and he said, "Oh, so you must know Bob Proctor." And I'm like, "Yeah, I love Bob Proctor. He's got great stuff." He's like, "Oh, that's my uncle."
Small world.
So here you go. So here I am meeting the nephew of Bob Proctor, which was
Hmm.
just such a crazy, I guess, law of attraction experience, right?
Well, some
And
people would call it a coincidence, but in the circles that we travel, we realize that there really are no
yeah,
coincidences.
you realize that there's not
Hmm.
really, yeah, exactly. So at the time, I was awakening to the power of the abilities that I had within my life.
Hmm.
It's the difference between the internal locus of control and the external locus of control, meaning that everything that I do is in direct control of what I do, as opposed to everything outside of me is controlling my
Right.
experience, right?
And
So
that's
I
for
went,
everybody, by the way, so that people
yes,
realize that.
mhm,
I do
yeah,
want to stop you for 1 sec. We got quite a few
please,
people popping in. We got the rabble rousing Pleiadian dragon slash lion says, "Hi, glad I remembered that you're here." We got Zach Man, one of our regular supporters. Hey, Zach, welcome. And then
hello,
we've got Michelle Bell who says, "Hi, Don."
okay, yeah, she's a follower of mine.
I
Uh,
figured. Go ahead.
yeah,
So we're at this nephew now of
yeah,
Bob
yeah.
Proctor. Hmm.
So yeah, I meet Bob Proctor's nephew, and so at the time I was really awakening to the power and the excitement that I had, and consequently everybody has. And this is sort of the tie-in that I want to make with this call. You know, everybody's feeling really down because of this nonsense that's going on in the world, and
Powerless.
powerless, exactly. But you really do have tremendous power inside of you, and I'm going to get back to that a little bit later in our conversation. So, you know, I'm here like happy-go-lucky, like, woo, you know, I'm going to take over the world and everything.
Being 20 years old and the world, you know, by the tail, and
you know, doughy-eyed or the bright-eyed, you know, whatever they say. And
you're going to change the world. You just finished probably university or just, you know, tail end of it. Yep.
I still feel that way, but, you know, not quite as naive.
But from a different perspective, I gotcha. Yeah.
So, for confidentiality purposes and names and stuff, this person says you need to meet. I'll just make up a name. Johnny.
Go ahead. Yeah.
You need to meet Johnny. I said okay. And so Johnny lived a little bit outside of the state in which I'm from, North Carolina. So I go to visit Johnny in a rural farm, and I didn't know anything about anything. And I come to find out that Johnny was a victim of MK Ultra. Now, I had never heard about MK Ultra before. I didn't know what that was. And for those of you guys that don't know what MK Ultra is, it's essentially a private government project that has been, as far as I know, still going on.
Canada has a big part to play in it.
Oh yeah. And it has utilized terrible methods of torture and drug usage and sensory deprivation. It was basically a black ops project that was started to figure out how you could manipulate the minds of people and actually like fracture people's psyche.
With sexual abuse as well, too. That was a huge part.
Yeah, physical abuse. It's really, really, really dark.
Horrific.
It's like the scummiest, worst of the worst stuff. And, you know, here I am, and I meet this guy who is a victim of MK Ultra. And so I go into this guy's house, and his entire house is just covered wall to wall with all these books. And every one of these books is read and all highlighted and everything. And I come to find that Johnny is a genius. And he has photographic memory. He can remember all of these things. He's really a remarkable individual. Unfortunately, he's passed away of, I think, like lung cancer or something like that. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But so I come to find out that Johnny, what was interesting about this individual was that he had a twin brother. And so Johnny was of particular interest to this person, to the government, because he had a twin brother, and they were saying, okay, I want to figure out how twins work and how to manipulate with twins and stuff like that. So Johnny, and I saw photos of Johnny and all hooked up and all this stuff, and I was like, holy crap, this is real, you know.
This is real, yeah.
This is real, you know. It completely blew my mind, and he was there, and he was spouting off all this information and just the true knowledge and the history of humanity and Earth. Everything that we've been taught is a complete lie. And here I am, just having my entire world crumbling around me as I'm learning about this, and really just having my entire reality shattered. I jokingly call it getting pushed into the deep end without having any swimming experience or knowing how to do that. And so
and no life preserver.
Exactly. And he had photographic memory, Johnny did, and he was able to just basically remember any kind of page on the book or whatever. And he told me, he said, Don, I don't know if this is a result of just me biologically being who I am, or a result of these experiments that I went through. And so after he became an adult, he said, what on earth is going on? I need to figure out what the truth is. So he spent most of his adult life, at the time I met him, he was probably in his early 60s. Most of his adult life trying to figure out what the heck was actually going on in this world. Now, the thing that really set things off for me, and I think I would say what really sealed the nail in the coffin, was that Johnny's brother didn't make it out so well and was recruited as a high-level military official and had top secret clearance to a lot of information. And he basically just had tons and tons of documents of this information. And I just read a lot of these top secret classified documents. And it scared the crap out of me, you know, because here I am. Well, I mean, basically, because a lot of people ask me, like, what's in it inside? Let's just start with this. everything that you believe to be true is a lie.
Hmm.
And most of the conspiracies that have been talked about are pretty much true.
That's why I call it truth seeking. I
You know,
refuse to call it conspiracy theory.
yeah,
Hmm.
because it's true. And you know, when I
Hmm.
have people talk to me, they say, "Oh, that's not true." But I look at them, I'm like, "I've read the documents, I've seen the names. It's like it's of course it's true."
Hmm.
You know, my eyes don't deceive me. And so here I am, like, oh my god, my whole life is a lie. Every one of these celebrities and politicians and all these people that I thought were all these great people are just horrible people.
I want to stop you for one sec because I think
Yeah,
this is important when people ask you this question. Well, that's not true. You read documents that weren't released to the public, right? Like
as
you,
far as I know, it's still
yeah,
not.
yeah.
And and which is why I was really afraid to talk about this because at that point I was like, I know something that could get me killed
Hmm.
and my whole family,
Hmm. Yeah.
and in a lot of respects, I sort of blotted it out in my mind. I don't choose to remember, a lot of that stuff,
Well,
but I
because
know what
then
I
you go
saw.
to a place of fear, which we're going to get to a
Exactly.
little bit
Yeah.
later, and how
Yeah.
you get over this fear. But go ahead. Sorry.
Precisely. Yeah. No, it's fine. So,
Hmm.
so I knew it was at that moment
Hmm.
that I sort of was at a bifurcation. I said, here I am. I'm going to go out into the world and try to do the 9 to 5 and do what everybody else does. Or I have the choice to take a different path
Hmm.
and to figure out what the HE double hockey sticks is going on in the world and
Hmm.
what my purpose of this in it, because I wasn't given this opportunity to not do something with it, to just run away from it. Right. And
Well,
for a
you
long,
were, but
yeah,
being the person that you are, as most of us in this field that have woken up,
yeah,
you had the choice, right? You really could have tried to stuff it under the carpet, but when we were talking privately, once you take that just a crack with the Pandora's box, if you will, and you
mm-hmm.
take that lid off, you can't unsee what you have seen, can you?
You can't.
Mm-mm.
There is no going back.
Hmm.
Really, like once you take the red pill, there is no going back.
Exactly.
And so I was like, oh my god, I can't feed into this beast. Like
Hmm.
I saw the whole world as this beast of like just sucking people's souls out through all. Oh, it was just so terrible, and it's just like looking at this demon that I just uncovered, and it was just so horrifying and shocking. I'm like, oh my god, I might as well just like move to China and study Buddhism, and maybe that's I just like went on this rabbit hole of, well, if everything in my life is wrong and everything in my life is a lie, then what is true,
Hmm.
right? And what's so interesting is that because all is frequency, when you start to attune your mind to saying, I want to know the truth,
Hmm.
I want to know what's true, then it asks you, are you sure?
It's kind of like that line that Jack Nicholson said from
Yeah.
that movie, right? You can't handle the truth. Because I believe, I had kind of thought before how the world had changed in the past 2 years that, well, people will be able to handle this, they'll understand this. And then I realized when I saw the reaction of what's going on now, no, I don't think most people could handle the truth. And most people that I meet, and I'm sure yourself included, they go, and we're going to talk about this, but they go through almost a depression of, oh my God, my whole life has been a lie.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I even go? Where do I look for the truth, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's so funny because whenever I watch somebody do that, because I've seen that happen in
So have
people's
I.
eyes,
Hmm.
and I just can't help but smile because I'm like, welcome,
I've been there before.
we've been down here.
I never had that reaction, and I don't know why, because I know maybe I've always known my whole life. I don't know that it's not what it is. I don't know what it is, but I never, to me, it was exciting in a way and not in a happy way. It was exciting, like, oh my God, none of this is real, which
Yeah,
means there has to be another way. There has to be a better way. Hmm.
precisely. Yeah,
Hmm.
precisely. And so it took me a long time for me to figure things out, and I feel like a big trap that people fall into,
Yes.
this is a huge trap that people fall into, is just focusing on the fear and the negativity, and it's very important to figure out what is going on and what the darkness is, but that's only one step. That's, if you get stuck there, I'm going to steal this line from Mark Passio. If you guys don't listen to his work, it's phenomenal. But
Mm-hmm.
he said it's the cul-de-sac before the gold mine.
Okay, because somebody just asked us, welcome Indrid Cole. They said, what
Yes.
do you guys think the truth is?
Okay. Well,
That's what the whole show is going to be about tonight, actually, right, Don?
I mean, I can give you the quick and dirty if you want.
Go for it.
You want the quick and dirty? All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that I know the truth. I'm not saying I'm this great.
This is your truth. This is your truth.
This is my interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm. No dog. No dog. Sorry, my dog's trying to jump in.
My understanding of this is that all is love. And that on some level, even in the deepest, darkest pits of hell that you can get into,
mm-hmm.
you can still find love there if you, quote, repent, which literally mm-hmm. means to turn back within. It doesn't mean to oh, I'm such a terrible, crappy person. I'm so evil.
I'm so glad you gave your definition of repent, because there's people going, oh my God, are we going to be doing religion tonight? No, we're not.
No, it's really, well, okay.
In a way, but we're not getting into the dogma of religion. We're going into higher concepts.
It is a deeper understanding of what this dogma is talking about, mm-hmm. right? And so when you turn back within and you look to do it again, and you look back within, you see the principle of the heart mm-hmm. and the intelligence of the heart. And it's my understanding at this moment that the deepest and most profound and beautiful truths of reality and your experience and your existence reside and can be interfaced in with the heart. Mm-hmm. And this is what I believe to be the Christ within, mm-hmm. the Holy Spirit. And actually, I'm going to show you an interesting thing, like an interesting picture that I think will kind of demonstrate what I mean by this.
While you're grabbing it, because Indrid said, I'm no stranger. I just wanted to hear what your truth was. And thank you for asking.
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. It's mm-hmm. it's an inevitable question when you get to this. But so,
and we should point out, none of us know all the answers. Okay, we're all human, and this is what our interpretation is. Hey, Dave, welcome. Dave was on last week. Dave Petrella. He's an astrologer. He already messaged me earlier. I'll see you later on tonight. So he says, hi, Lorilei. Hi, Don.
Cool.
Welcome.
Hey, mm-hmm. Thank you for coming on. Awesome. So try to get past the image or the dogma or whatever kind of thing will pop into your head, and just look at the deeper meaning behind this photo I'm going to show you. So you see this, mm-hmm. So this is the Christ, and what's he pointing to? He's literally pointing to the heart, mm-hmm. and it's going like this. It's pointing to so it's basically telegraphing to your subconscious mind that the highest and deepest and most beautiful truths of existence and reality come in from the heart. Mm-hmm. Which is the awakening of the Christ within, mm-hmm. and which is the truest and deepest love and truth that you can ever experience. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to kind of talk about it as an intellectual kind of thing, and it's another thing to have a direct visceral experience with that. Mm-hmm. And so an analogy that I like to give is like talking about the most transcendental sex you'll ever have with a partner. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And actually having the physical connection and the incredibly cosmic, orgasmic bliss of love and connection and respect and honor.
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Sure, yeah, please.
So, say we talk about that, right? And you wouldn't know what it is really until you actually experienced it yourself.
Yes.
But if you haven't, how do people know? They got to go on what your experience is, what you tell them. Right? Yeah, because I've heard you, one of your podcasts, and you got into this about, even about the 10 Commandments and premarital sex. And there was nothing with religion. It made a lot of sense to me, because I think what it all boils down to, if somebody can't measure this, for example, or even see where you're coming from, you can try and explain it. It's about love. Everybody knows what love is.
Yeah, right? It boils down to love and consciousness. Mm-hmm. For example, for me, I was raised a Christian, and then
Hmm.
I was like, oh my God, this is all BS. I don't believe any of this. So then I literally studied the entire gambit. I studied, oh my gosh, Gnosticism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism,
Hmm.
Neoplatonism, Hermeticism, New Age, New Thought, all of it.
And
And
why
then
did you do that, Don? Did you think you were going to find any different answers? I don't think I even asked you that when we talked before the show a couple days ago, but what was your reasoning for that, if you don't mind me asking?
I just wanted to know the truth. I wanted to know
Okay.
I wanted to know what was real and what wasn't.
Hmm.
Um, let me read what she's saying. My understanding now is our world is being controlled by non-human entities, fallen angels, or aliens, or whatever. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
we can get into that too, and that's a very deep insight that we can get deeper into. But I realized that through my journey, and
Hmm.
this is sort of why I think we felt so compelled to have this video now, is that just reading and meditating and doing all these things and understanding and accumulating knowledge is great to an extent,
Right.
but it is completely dwarfed by direct experience. And not only direct experience, but also physically doing something.
Hmm.
It's one thing talking about how you can start a successful business as opposed to starting a successful
Hmm.
business, right? And so that was when I realized that when I had that direct experience, I'll sort of explain to you what it felt like to me.
Okay.
Um, and I think that some people can resonate with this.
Yeah, because we
So
already got somebody that said, bye, religious talk. I promise you, we're not getting into
we're not
religion
we're
or
not talking about religion.
religion in the way
This
of dogma or anything like
Yeah,
that. So
it has nothing to
they're
do with
lost.
religion. Yeah. Well, it's
Hmm.
it's unfortunate because I'll give you an example. The word religion, as far as I
Hmm.
know from the Latin understanding, comes from relegare, which means it has two different meanings. One means to tie back or to thwart,
Hmm.
like holding back somebody, or one thing that means to bind together
Hmm.
and to hold together as like a unit, right? So depending on your way of understanding this, you can look at religion from a controlling perspective or from an embracing perspective, right?
Hmm.
I don't follow a religion.
Hmm.
I don't believe in religion. I
Hmm.
believe in following truth, wherever
Hmm.
that takes me, however that takes me. And currently at this moment in my life, this is my understanding because it's been the most profound experience that I've ever had in my life.
Hmm.
And I'm subject to change at all times, and I'm open to being wrong. And I think that most people are not.
Hmm.
They kind of get stuck in their this is it, this is my truth, and then anything that else that kind of interfaces or kind of knocks that down,
Hmm.
they can't handle it. There's a lot of
Right.
spiritual egotism around here, and so I'm not saying that what I know is true. It's
Hmm.
just my
It's
direct experience.
your experience. And the thing that I think is so important and why I have people from different backgrounds and different experiences and what have you, I think we
Mm-hmm.
can all learn from one another. And the other thing is, I always say, same thing, I don't follow a religion. I was raised
Mm-hmm.
Roman Catholic. I never resonated with it. Then I get people telling me I'm a heathen. No, I'm not. You don't know what my belief system is. And, just to assume, I think that's where we go wrong rather than having an open conversation. But I also say, there are people that need that religious dogma, and that's okay too. There's no judgment
And
on
that's
our
okay.
parts in any
Yeah.
way. This is just us sharing our
Mm-hmm.
stories, and if something resonates with you, great. Sorry, Dawn, go ahead. I wanted to clarify
No,
that.
no, it's fine. So, so this is sort of the experience that I had, and that was when I was like, "Oh, I get it."
Hmm.
So I was sitting at this exact same place here, and I was reading this book that was really challenging a lot of what I thought to be true,
Hmm.
and it was causing me a lot of stress and anxiety. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm trying to figure out what's true in this earth and what's not true so I can be a better servant, so I can help people." And I just constantly keep getting my understandings challenged. And how can I even help people if I don't even know what I believe to be true is correct? It's like, how can I
Hmm.
even serve people if I'm just not even grounded in anything? Right. And let alone the world's going to crap. people are dying, people are killing themselves, and I'm trying to pay my bills. So I just kind of reached this overwhelming sense in my head of, oh my God, I give up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I don't know. I can spend the rest of my life figuring this out, and I'll be walking through this labyrinth. I give up. I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I called out, and I don't know. I just said this. I said, Christ, if you're real, just I don't know what the hell to do. Just help me out. Just take the burden away from my experience because I can't do this. And
Mm-hmm.
it was literally at that moment. It was so profound. The three things happened. Three distinct things happened.
Mm-hmm.
One was that have you ever been in love before, like deeply in love with somebody,
Yes.
and you can be around that person and literally just stare at a wall for hours, and it didn't
Mm-hmm.
matter as long as you were in the presence of that person. You just felt so good, and you could just say nothing and just
Mm-hmm.
feel so high and so in love.
Yeah.
It felt like that again.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing prompted that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Nothing. I didn't talk to anybody, or I literally just immediately this descent of overwhelming love that I felt for not any particular person or any particular thing, but this experience that came
Mm-hmm.
into my life. And I felt this tremendous sense of gratitude, this tremendous sense of peace, and my discernment was razor sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Like I knew if somebody was lying to me. I knew if something was not true. I just knew it in my core. And everything seemed to flow so effortlessly and so easily. And everything fell into place. I met all the right people. I had all the right experiences. And it was at that moment where my ego, my understanding of myself, of who I think Don is, and all the things I've accomplished, and my bio, and all, oh, look how special I am, like all of that
Mm-hmm.
just completely went out the door.
Right.
And I had no desire to do anything for myself that was to bolster up my own ego.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you could call it an ego death. I basically had like an ego death
Mm-hmm.
where my thoughts, I had no thoughts. It was just pure presence. It was just pure love. I guess you could call it grace. It was just pure grace. And I had this understanding that we do all of these things in our lives. We do meditation, we do Reiki healing, we do Qigong, we do all of these things to try to purify ourselves to get to this crystal clear state of where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
And it was literally saying everybody's doing all of these things so they can get back to the cleanest and purest state, which is this now. And it was so beautiful and it was so profound that it was literally all I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Literally all I wanted. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, if I'm in this state all the time, I will do nothing with my life because I'm
Mm-hmm.
so blissed out and feel so good and so connected and so aligned with the most beautiful realization that I had ever experienced that I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do anything else. And I thought, well, I mean, I got a long life to go. What can I do? And it said, literally, the only reason why you've been given these gifts is to further express the glory of this divine experience that you're having, this divine love.
Mm-hmm.
And the I think the most profound realization of all, especially for a lot of truth seekers and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
within the truther community, for the first time in my life, I felt like I sought no more. That there was nothing more to learn. There
Mm-hmm.
is nothing more to do. There's nothing more to experience. You have reached the apogee, the most beautiful, divine, unspeakably incredible experience you'll ever have. And I'm like, that's all I want. Literally all I want. To be feeling this way and doing this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in that moment that I knew that after that experience,
Mm-hmm.
that would never leave. And that always was there. And that I
Mm-hmm.
could always draw upon that experience. And knowing that that was so real with that, and it's not just my personal experience. It's with everybody's personal experience. You can
But
have
I
that
get,
conversion.
okay, so I'm going to stop you there for a second
Sure,
because
yeah,
people are
sure.
probably hearing this and going, okay, that's great for Dawn.
Hmm.
But the thing is that part of the pieces that we're not talking about that I think are so imperative to this piece of and this isn't something just, and I know you're not saying that only you can attain. This is for every human being, but part of
Every
this
human.
is okay, so when you brought up Reiki, I'm a crystal Reiki energy healer, for example. And like I said to you when we were talking before the show,
Hmm.
yeah, people can come to me for crystal Reiki. I'll do chakra balancing, I'll do all this other stuff with them, sealing their energy aura and the whole bit.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
it's just a band-aid. I'd like to empower people to learn how to balance their own chakras. But
Hmm.
it's just a band-aid because the problem, for whatever it may be that they're coming to see me, I'm not removing that problem. I always say I'm just the mailman. When you do Reiki, you're channeling the light and love from source, from God, whatever your belief system is. But you had to get into some healing. This is
Yeah,
like healing trauma. This is
yeah,
where people's issues come from. This is where disease comes from, I believe. Like coming from a big pharma background, being a nurse,
yes,
I still believe the human body is capable of healing itself. But because of
it
what
is.
we encounter spiritually, energetically, traumatically, could be past life stuff we're carrying, we end up letting it sit there without clearing it. I believe as human beings, we are meant to run energy. When you get into the, as you call it, the
Yeah,
chakra, or I call it the chakra system,
yeah. Hmm.
we're meant to be channeling energy. And
Hmm.
when you look at even Eastern medicine, which Don and I talked for quite a few hours, so we talked about all these things.
Hmm.
You start looking at the ki or the chi lines, and we're meant, that's the reason, there's a reason why acupuncture works and things like that. We're meant
Hmm.
to be channeling energy and running it as divine human beings in love. I really believe that.
Hmm.
So that was a big piece of your puzzle as well, wasn't it, Dawn, that you really had to
Yeah,
get into healing?
yeah, absolutely. But I think it's even simpler than that. And
Hmm.
what's so beautiful about this is that it's so ridiculously easy that people are like, I myself, I'm like, it can't be that easy. It can't be that simple. I'm feeling like I sort of should kind of explain this in a different way.
Okay.
Maybe from like a subconscious new thought law of attraction kind of um, terminology.
Okay.
Let's picture. So you're familiar with archetypes, right?
Hmm.
Like this concept of an archetype. So for those that don't know what an archetype is, it's sort of like this idealized actualization of a specific phenomenon that happens within a human experience. So
Hmm.
the archetype of a warrior, for example, would be, when somebody thinks of a warrior, they think of brave, they think of loyalty, they think of discipline. So it's building this perfect image of what one could embody within that facet of the human experience. So
Right.
what about the archetype of human perfection? What does that mean? Everybody's thinking about, I want to be perfect. I want to, what is the
But is that
most
really
beautiful thing?
possible as a human being? I don't know if perfect.
Sure, sure. I'm trying
Yeah,
to paint an
I hear
analogy
you.
here.
I'm not
So
trying to give you a hard time here.
no, no,
I'm
no, it's
not.
fine. But so I think we all like to think about what could that actually look like.
I agree with that.
You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, because we think about, what is the perfect spouse or whatever. So a lot of the times our minds are trying to come up with this idea of what is the perfect human being?
Hmm.
What does it mean to give the most love and the most beautiful sacrifice? So let's just try to separate any type of religion or person or whatever and think, what is the ultimate love that any human being could ever give, the ultimate expression of love that anybody could give, just from like an archetypal perspective. And I would think sacrificing your own life to help the entire world. I can't
Hmm.
think of, or maybe the entire universe.
Hmm.
That's something like, if I saved the whole universe through my own life, that's the ultimate sacrifice I can give. And or what is the ultimate expression of love that one can give? It's loving everything and everyone unconditionally. The Greeks knew this as agape love, right? And so these are all expressions of ideas that one could actually do within their own human experience. You could love people unconditionally. It's very challenging, but you could do that. And so by building this idea of this archetype within your mind attunes itself to that frequency of potentiality.
Okay.
So, so if we are all collectively thinking of what is the most beautiful thing and the most beautiful expression of divine love that we could possibly think of, and all of our collective minds are coming in and we're like, well, it can be this, they can do this, and they can say this, and they can have this. And it's this beautiful expression and building this potential creation of existence.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you tune in to that frequency of whatever that is, you then get to experience our collective understandings of that most beautiful expression of love, purest of truth, peace, love, grace, abundance, all of these things. And then when you do that, when you call upon that frequency, your mind literally attunes to that potentiality within the infinite span of consciousness.
So that people understand too, and I'm going to read Dave's comment because I really like this,
Sure.
is that like attracts like in this universe, especially when it comes to energy. And there are laws of the universe, they do
Yes.
apply. That's one of them. And I hear what you're saying, but I love what Dave said here. And the other thing I'm going to add for me, I think the most, and again, this is just my personal experience, and I'm not talking from my own mother, I'm talking being a mother. I think one of the most purest loves that you can have is a mother for a
Yes.
child. Are you going to have perfect mothers out there? No. But I mean that love, when you have that bond and you would give your life. There's a reason why human mothers are called grizzly mamas or whatever you want to call us, right? Like you just don't mess with my kids, and you see it in the animal kingdom. But Dave says moving as close as you can to the divine version of yourself. And I like that. It's beautiful.
That's basically what I'm getting at. And
Mm-hmm.
in a way, it feels transpersonal,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that this is not the lesser Don, the lower ego of Don. It is a greater, higher divine mind,
Mm-hmm.
that one can call upon. And so I think that what's so interesting is that just as bad and horrible as it can get in the world, don't you think that it can get just as beautiful and amazing? And people don't think that, they don't think, oh, it's all so bad and so evil. I'm like, well, if it's so bad and evil, don't you think that there's something that's just as beautiful, if not more?
Yeah, but we're conditioned. Like, think about this, Dawn, too, right? Like, okay, we'll even take this podcast, for example. We could have a million wonderful comments and, I'm loving this, whatever it is. I'm not saying that's up there. And then you get one comment. I hate this. This is awful. This is BS, blah, 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 right? Okay, so what I'm saying is it's human nature that we don't remember the hundreds of beautiful, wonderful comments. We will focus on that one little micro minutia thing and it doesn't mean that it doesn't sting any less, but we need to realize as human beings that when people spew their whatever negativity, hatred, awful words, that's their journey. That's all about them. That has nothing to do with us. Anybody shining their light, when you get the trolls, when you get whoever, that's about them, right?
Yeah.
It is. But people don't. And same as this, what we're talking about, right? It's easy to focus on the negative as human beings instead of realizing exactly what you're saying. There has to be an opposite. We live in a world of duality in this 3D existence.
Precisely. And really the only way to come to the deepest realization of yourself is to understand the darkness on a deep, intimate level, not necessarily meaning that you have to participate in the darkness. You just have to be aware of its existence. And then with that, allow yourself to be a vessel. Allow your body and your mind and your spirit to be a vessel to this expression of the most profound love and truth that can possibly be conceived. And what's so really fun and simple about it is that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to figure something out. You don't have to go do something. Well, it's sort of a paradox in a way because you do. I say, all you got to do is show up.
Hmm.
You say, okay, I'm here to play. What do I do? Give me the downloads. And
Hmm.
literally, as you act as a vessel, you get this divine intelligence guiding you. Talk to this person, go to this person, be here, do this. And that's how I met Juan. And
Hmm.
that's how Juan connected me to you.
Hmm.
Literally just showing up and waiting for the right things to fall into place.
Well, I think it's listening to it. Now, whether people want to call it intuition, people, and then when you try and explain this, people think you're hearing voices. You're not hearing voices. It's your own inner voice. We all talk to ourselves, whether you want to say you do or you don't. We all talk to ourselves. We have that inner chat, if you will. But there's a difference. And I always try and explain this to people as a spiritual teacher or mentoring other people to access their, we all have these gifts. We all have this intuition. We all have it all. And
Yeah,
it's hearing that inner voice, if you will, within the mind's eye, I always say, but it's different than, say, the ego speaking to you. What
that's
it
right. Yeah.
is it's something that I always use this example. You're laying in bed at night, you're worried, you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? There just doesn't seem to be an answer. You're laying awake at night for hours, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this stroke of genius shows up. And
Mhm.
you go, oh my God, that's it. That's
That's
it.
it.
And you
Yeah.
follow it and you listen to it and it works out beautifully. And then there's times when you go, no, that's got to be my imagination. No, I'm not going to listen to it.
Mhm.
And then you realize afterwards, crap, I should have listened. That's what it
Exactly what it
is,
is.
right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
precisely. But
Mhm.
I think it's important to set the intention first, because one of the biggest things that people struggle with is they drift in life. They don't have a
Mhm.
sense of direction. They have some vague idea of a dream, but they don't
Mhm.
actually put goals and intentions into it.
Mhm.
So one of the main intentions that I set out to myself every day is, how can I be of the very highest and most beautiful expression of global transformation and healing and love in everything that I do today. And there I've cast my net out.
Mhm.
Now I just wait. And then I meet people, and then I get on podcasts, and oh, you got to talk to this person. Oh, you got to talk to this person. So it's literally setting your intention
Mhm.
for the most beautiful expression possible for yourself,
Mhm.
and then that actually falling into place. So that's why it's actually really easy.
It,
And one of the what's, you want to say something? Yeah.
all I was going to say is Esther Hicks, and she channels, I always forget his first name, but he uses,
Abraham.
thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
I always forget Abraham's name. Sorry about that, Abraham. But she uses the analogy through Abraham that life is like paddling in a canoe. And Abraham talks about paddling uphill all the time. Life is a struggle. Life is a struggle. And
Mhm.
exactly, if you just stop, say you're in this stream, you don't really have to do anything. You just stop and breathe. The current is going to turn that canoe, he starts talking about, and then it becomes effortless. And what I like to teach to people is that once it becomes like, even if you can just stop and breathe, okay, everything's really overwhelming. But I believe that exactly what you're saying, how can I show up, however you want to word it, but you want to be able to embody love. You want to be able to, even forgiveness, you're going to have to forgive yourself. You're not going to be perfect at this every single time. You're still going to get angry. You're still going to have issues, whatever it is. But I believe that the closer that we get towards why we were here in the first place, because none of us are here by accident, that life does become easier. The stream becomes easier to navigate. But as we start turning that canoe again and fighting to paddle uphill further away from the reasons why we're here, life is going to be a struggle. But the minute you get closer, it becomes effortless. That's how I've seen it. That's what I believe, anyways.
Yes, yeah, and I'd like to add on a little more to that. Actually,
Absolutely.
there's a I think this is in the Bible. I don't know. It says, you reap what you sow. That is actually a Bible quote. Yeah, you reap what
Hmm.
you sow.
Hmm.
I would disagree with that, and here's the reason why.
Interesting.
Here's the reason why. I think that there is an asymmetrical relationship
Hmm.
to. Okay, let me give you an example. When you are operating with this divine intelligence that is so beautiful and so powerful and so transformative, if you just basically allow yourself to channel that higher self, that Christ
Hmm.
within, that vessel, whatever you want to call it, it is so easy and transformative to make such an impact on people. It's like sometimes when I watch videos of myself, and I've called upon this being to work through me. I'm like, wow, that was profound. Don wouldn't say that,
Mhm.
and so it actually feels effortless.
Mhm.
It feels so easy and fun,
Mhm.
actually. So when you talk about these kinds of things, when you talk about truth, when you talk about service, when you talk about love, you can talk about it all the time because
Mhm.
it's so much fun and it's so invigorating and it feels good and it doesn't. Here's the thing: it doesn't feel like you're putting in any effort.
Mhm.
So the way in which it feels to you is it feels very easy, very effortless. However, the way in which the universe registers it is that you've had such a tremendously profound impact on somebody's life where you've only
Mhm.
talked to them for 2 minutes or so, and they've had such a revolutionary transformation in getting that energetic transmission and the download that it registers that you've done so much more good than you have harm.
Mhm.
And
So
so
are we
as a
getting
result,
into karma? Is that what we're
so
talking
yeah,
about
it's,
here?
it's kind of like karma, but I
Mhm.
think that there's such an asymmetrical relationship to love versus fear.
Mhm.
And so because it feels so effortless to you, one person can talk to you 6 years later and you've had a little brief minor conversation with them and they
Mhm.
go up to you and they say, I never forgot that conversation we had at the gas station. That was so amazing. You've changed my life forever. I'm like, okay, yeah, great, thanks. I'm glad. Right. And so the
Mhm.
same works with everybody. And you can allow your vessel and your body to be that channel of that divine love and intelligence to work through you. And it feels like it's effortless and easy, but the results that you get back are so overwhelmingly beautiful.
Okay, so let's back this up into practicality then.
Sure,
So
sure.
when you and I talked about this off air. Um,
Hmm.
so right now where we are, we've got a lot of people
Yep.
waking up to the truth, waking up to not religion, but spirituality, enlightenment. Now we're seeing the evil that's going on in the world. And this is where I find where a lot of us get stuck. I'm going to be honest. There's days where I have bad days where I just got to say, you know what, got to turn this all off. I'm going to do something that brings me joy.
Hmm.
And practice of gratitude, I believe, are very, very important.
Yeah.
And so once you do that, but where do people go from here? Because what's happening, I'm finding a lot of people with this being thrown in the deep end, because a lot of people are being thrown in the deep end, not knowing how to swim, not getting a life preserver, realizing their whole life is a lie, and they're getting stuck in the fear. They're getting
Hmm.
stuck in the negativity because they don't see a way out. How do
Yeah.
we utilize these principles to
Yeah.
help people realize that there's
Hmm.
another way? And the other thing I'm going to add very quickly that I always say to people, it doesn't matter what happens on this planet, it never lasts forever.
Hmm.
Negativity or positivity, it's always static. It's like a pendulum,
Hmm.
always moving. And one other thing I wanted to add was that I often say this too, that when we're in a state of bliss, we're in a state of happiness, whether we're madly in love with someone or life is just going beautifully, there is no impetus for change because
Hmm.
your status quo, you want to keep things the way they are. So,
Hmm.
like you kind of mentioned that a bit yourself, like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Right.
Yeah.
So, I guess rolling this all into one,
Yeah.
okay, we're not the majority right now that are awake or what have you, but one person can make a massive difference. So, how do we get people
Massive,
to move past this fear, this
massive
stuckness,
difference.
this
Sure.
hopelessness, this
Sure.
helplessness?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Creating heaven on earth, by the way, is where we're
Perfect.
going with your
Yeah.
World Summit to talk about as well.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So I kind of want to I want to paint an example.
Hmm.
If you look at some like gurus from India, for example,
Hmm.
they are dirt poor and they don't have anything, and they
Hmm.
live in poverty intentionally. But
Hmm.
have you noticed that there's ashrams and organizations and publishing houses and meditation centers, all of these things being built around the vision of that individual,
Hmm.
even though the individual has nothing?
Hmm.
It's because they are harnessing in what I call, and get mad at me if you don't like this word, the frequency of Christ.
Hmm.
That beautiful realization. Because have you ever seen someone you're like, I like that person, and I don't know why. They keep shining. I want to talk to them. There's something special about that person. It's because they're allowing that intelligence to work through them. And
Hmm.
as a result, their beautiful vision that they have for the world just instantaneously manifests in front of them because other people want to make that vision happen.
Hmm.
So you yourself have to allow that intelligence and that framework of heaven on earth to be imprinted with your own self
Hmm.
and be embodying it with your thoughts and your words and your actions every day. And then you're going to create that momentum that says, wow, okay, this person's really doing something. It's not to say
Hmm.
that you sit on your butt and watch Netflix all day. No, you got to go do something. But
Hmm.
when you have that vision, that deep, profound vision in your head, and your feet are on the ground
Hmm.
doing every day, everything will fall into place.
Because what I'm finding is, and
Uh-huh.
these are people with beautiful souls and beautiful hearts and full of love,
Yes,
they're trying to wake people up
yes,
around them. They're being met with anger, with
uh-huh.
hatred, with
Uh-huh.
division, what have you. Now, again, this is just my perspective, but what I have said to people is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So the
No.
information is there. When something is in somebody's bubble, again, I go with the quotation marks. I've never done it so many times in a show. I haven't. I never use those. But when it's in somebody's bubble, they wake up. And I'm going to give this example. There was this poor woman. I was watching a show, I think it was Stu Peters, and she had pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed her father, who was well, but still being followed up by an oncology clinic to go
Mhm.
get the jab, we'll call it. We have to be careful what we use here. And he had just had the morning of his second shot, lung scan, blood work, completely healthy. He showed up in the hospital 2 days later and died, apparently of acute renal failure and pneumonia. Well, long story short, there's nobody putting anything on a death certificate about what this probably came from. My whole point is this woman believed everything around her. Now she's awake. Now she's trying to wake people up. Now she's trying to tell them. Okay. So, this is kind of some of the emotions that we're dealing with. People that are angry, they've been lied to, they've been what have you. And my whole
Yeah,
point is I think we're getting stuck in these emotions,
yeah.
and we're allowing there's a fine line between fear and
Hmm.
other emotions, and fear
Yeah.
is overwhelming. It knocks out most parts of your brain to even think, literally. So
Hmm.
there's 2 points I'm making here. One is the people that are coming from good intentions trying to wake others,
Hmm.
and then the other ones who are awakening and so angry and now trying to use their voice. But how could
Hmm.
we use that energy more in a more positive, productive way, if you will, instead of getting stuck in this?
Sure, sure. I think that I'm sort of getting a download and sort of like a visualization as to
Hmm.
how I can sort of explain this. I think that when people wake up, they sort of reach a point where they're like, I just got to stop the bleeding. I just got to make it stop. Like, make it stop, and they're kind of like scrambling and they're kind of freaking out. And, they just think to, oh my God, I got to stop the bleeding. What about my job? What about my family? And they think very immediately and very myopically in a way because it's very frantic. It's not planned out. It's not based out. And so, yes, you are pointing in the right direction, but you have to think deeper and bigger. If you have to think at the end goal, which is the actualization of heaven on earth. What does that look like? Why don't we have that conversation? And when you start having that conversation, how does that feel like? What does that look like? That's when we start to attune our minds to that possibility of happening, which is
Hmm.
inevitable. It's going to happen anyway. It's already started. And so it's the more and more we have this kind of conversation, the more and more people that wake up to the darkness, and the more people that find the awakening of the
Hmm.
Christ within their hearts, because it's so contagious, it's inevitable. It's never going to stop. The cat's out of the
Hmm.
bag. And
It is a scary
so,
place to be,
how?
though, Dawn, when you like, and I'm going to say this
Yeah,
just being realistic with the
yeah,
fact that you've got a family to
yeah,
feed. You don't
yes,
know how you're going to
yeah,
feed them. You don't know
yeah,
if you're going to have a roof over your head. And when we're talking things like heaven on earth, and I'm not trying to be an asshole here, I'm going to use that word. I'm
no,
not.
I totally understand it. I totally understand it,
Hmm.
and I do think that it comes to it is approached immediately. It has to be approached immediately. How do I deal with my situations now?
Hmm.
But we can't stop there.
Hmm.
And and so really, what people need to do is they need to disobey. They need to stop following mandates. Like and this actually gets deep down into human psychology. We have been taught from a very young age that obedience to authority is a virtue.
Or as my partner says, you go to school, before you go to school, you ask why. In grade school, you still ask why. You're told to sit in your desk. Anyways, by the end of it all, you
Yeah,
stop asking why.
yeah,
You
yeah.
listen to authority. Now, again, I want to point out too, when we say to disobedience, we're not talking running around and with pitchforks and guns and stuff like that's
No,
not what we're talking about.
no.
But
It's what basically it's just saying no.
hmm
And not being an idiot about it, not being violent about it, just being like, no, I'm not going to do that.
hmm
No, I'm not going to do that. And that negation doesn't have power of you. And if enough people say no, then it's not going to happen.
I think we saw it with Southwest
Yeah,
Airlines.
yeah, yeah. And to get back to your point, when you realize that you are so divinely connected to this inexhaustible source of love, an inexhaustible source of abundance, then you're never abandoned. You
hmm
know that you have everything that you need to make things happen in your life.
hmm
So people can be facing fear right now, and a lot of millions of people are facing fear. If I don't get the jab, I'm going to lose my job.
hmm
Well, God rewards bravery.
hmm
And how on earth are we supposed to fight a terrible demonic force that's descending upon humanity if we don't have people that are brave enough to quit their jobs and say, up yours?
hmm
I'm going to be very brash about it. But yes, it's scary.
I
Yes,
can speak from experience. Okay, I'm going to tell, I may have told you this, I may not have, but we lived in a home that with paranormal activity, very extreme. I know you know that. It affected everyone in my neighborhood. They didn't know what was going on, but real became very awful, malicious people that I had lived around for years and for no reason. Um, because of one of my neighbor's actions, it wasn't because I didn't pay my bills. I
mm-hmm.
had the city bylaw officer at my house like practically every 2 days because he would sit on my front sidewalk and measure my grass. And if it was like one iota over regulation, city bylaw officer was there. Long story short, I got a fine for something that was beyond our control. I was
Mm-hmm.
dealing with a pro bono lawyer, gave me bad advice. And this happened to do with property taxes. Most people in the United States, this wouldn't even happen to. My property taxes weren't paid because I was told not to pay them or I would be in agreement with the fine. Long
Mm-hmm.
story short, I lost my
Mm-hmm.
house. I lost my
Mm-hmm.
house with very little notice.
Wow.
I was supposed to be given 72 full hours to get whatever I
Mm-hmm.
needed out of my house. We got 12 hours, but we were very kind to the people that were there. We knew it was just their job, and we said, we don't envy you. You've got a pretty crappy job. Anyways, we
Mm-hmm.
found out some people didn't get any time. So
Mm.
we came from a place of gratitude that we got out what we got out. And we got out
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
Anyways, long story short, um, I pictured exactly where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I wanted, but my whole point is I've
Mm-hmm.
lost everything. And I
Yeah.
will tell you guys, you know what? We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what was going to happen, but it was like jump and the net shall appear. Because could I have fought this? Yeah, I could have fought it. And one
Yeah.
of my friends said to me that works in kind of the same aspects as we do, said, maybe this is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And she was
Yeah.
darn right, it was a gift. I don't look back at that place and say I miss it. But my whole point is, and yeah, it's fine and dandy for me to sit up here and say jump and the net will appear. But
Mm-hmm.
I am telling you guys, there is
It
always
always
a
does.
solution. It always does.
There's always a solution. And
hmm
I think that's one of the biggest things that people fear is that they don't think that there's a solution. Hey, Linda,
hmm
they don't think that there's a solution because the fear is blocking and clouding their judgment from
hmm
where could this possibly lead me? Where could this possibly go?
hmm
And there's millions and millions of people that are thinking the same way that you do. What
hmm
do I do? Where do I go? Find those people and physically meet up with them. That's
hmm
what people need to be doing. They need to physically be meeting up with
hmm
like-minded people,
Yep.
gathering events, gathering in groups, and going against the mandates and saying, you know what, this is my human right. I have the right to be around people. I don't give a crap what you say. Up yours.
Mm-hmm.
and you meet up with like-minded people and you support them. Okay, you're good at this. You're good at this. I can help you and connect you with this and give you this job.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is there. Are you familiar with Buckminster Fuller?
What's the name again?
Buckminster Fuller.
I
He
don't
was
think
kind of
so. No.
the guy's a genius basically.
Mm-hmm.
But he one of the best quotes I think that Buckminster Fuller ever said was that in order to, I'm paraphrasing, he said,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't destroy the existing structure that is in place. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you fight fire with fire, if you play against their rules, you're going to lose. What
Mm-hmm.
you need to do is you need to create a system outside of the current structure
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't interface with the structure that is so much better and so much more exciting and so much more enlivening
Mm-hmm.
that people will naturally just say, I don't want this, I want that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm talking about by heaven on earth. It's like you're just saying, I'm out of this system. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not involved in this anymore. Who's on board? I'm going to connect everybody with everybody that need to do to
Mm-hmm.
connect with, make it happen. And we're going to build this outside and
Mm-hmm.
make it better. And so by connecting with these like-minded people, you will find your safety net.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing about the human spirit is that we are very tenacious.
Very.
We are very tenacious, and
Mm-hmm.
because we have to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's our design. If we don't adapt, we die.
Mm-hmm.
And staying in fear, yeah, it's part of it. But
Plus, the
fear
other
is
thing is, Don, I always say too, their only weapon with what we're dealing with is fear.
that's it.
Once you lose the fear, the other thing, and it was a friend that is a really gifted medium that said this to me, and I about 10 seconds, I went, are you crazy? I went, no, that just might work. You know what she
Yeah.
said? She goes, when they do something crappy and your first reaction is, oh my God, and you're angry,
Yeah.
whatever,
Uh-huh.
send them love. And I'm going to tell you this right now. My son with severe autism, he gets what's going on. And he's like a 5 to 7 year old with no disrespect. But he only eats 6 foods, right? And
Uh-huh.
I even was able to taught him, I have something called a love shield. I teach people, it's
Uh-huh.
one of my videos I give out. I was able to teach him about this, that anger, because he only eats 6 foods, is say like broccoli.
Uh-huh.
No, sorry, love is like broccoli to when we lived in our old home. It's like broccoli to them. They hate it. They hate it. Anger is like your chicken nuggets and french fries. They love it. So what are you going to send them if you don't want them near you? You're going to send them broccoli or you're going to send them love. Okay, that's the same thing. Very simplistic. But
Yeah.
that's what this is, right? And that's all it is. They feed off the fear, the negativity, the anger, the sadness, the
It's their food.
yes,
It's they,
that's how
they love
simple
it.
it is.
They love it.
Yes.
And that's why I always go back to that awakening of the Christ within, because when you
Mm-hmm.
feel such a deep state of love and truth and understanding, you're like, I know that's so true. I know
Mm-hmm.
that's so true, not only for me, but for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like a rock. It's like you fall back on that. You're like, that's the truth. I know that that's possible, and I know that that experience is possible for everybody on this earth all the time. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
want to move towards. It's the great work. It's the
Mm-hmm.
great mission that people go through, and by coming together in communion and by
Mm-hmm.
taking that leap, things will fall into place.
Mm-hmm.
There was a really great thing that Juan said I liked a lot. It was because Juan used to be in the military,
Yes.
and whenever you're
Once a fellow Canadian like I am. I
yeah,
forgot to
yeah,
mention that I'm from Canada.
yeah.
Yes.
So he said, God doesn't abandon the troops, and God doesn't abandon the troops. And so whenever you're like, I need help, ping, 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 I need help, you know, a care package will be sent to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have all physically incarnated onto this earth to go through literally the greatest transformation in human consciousness that the world has ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
All is going to be revealed. We're going
Mm-hmm.
to see the darkest crap that we've ever experienced in life, and we're currently seeing it now, but we're also going to see the most beautiful
Mm-hmm.
light within ourselves. But we have to want that. We have
Mm-hmm.
to desire that. At this point, we're just desiring to survive, and that's good. We should survive, but you have, because okay, think of it this way: when you attune to the very highest apogee possible, like when you go to the capstone of the pyramid, which is
Mhm.
love and service, which is the realization of your purest, most beautiful essence.
Mhm.
The whole base of your pyramid gets built.
Mhm.
All the resources that you need, the people, the money, the resources, it all just falls into place.
Mhm.
We've been approaching it the other way. Oh, I need the car, I need the money, I need this thing in order to get to love.
That's the point I was trying to make. And
Yes.
actually, Dr. Carrie Madej, I had on my
Mhm.
show about a month ago, and we didn't quite get into all the scientific stuff because she does that on every show. We got
Mhm.
into a lot of pure personal stuff, including
Sure.
that, God bless her, but she's lost everything too. Besides her two dogs, her family's not speaking to her, she said, because of what she's come out with. But what she started talking about, she didn't call it heaven on earth, but what she was saying, exactly what you're saying here, is finding your people. Finding,
Yep.
we use the big buzzword tribe, but finding your
That's right.
people. And then
That's it.
she said exactly what you did. Somebody will be able to do this. Somebody will be able to do that. She was even talking about, as a physician, training lay people how to provide medical care so that, God forbid, something happened to, say, your physician in your group, if you will, you've got people that can still carry on and do this. And
Yes.
this is what this is all about. Like, depending on where you live, they're phasing out the barter system. They're making it illegal because, right, the I guess we'll call them the black hats, can't get what they want with cash, right? But that's the
Yeah.
beauty. That's how things used to work. This is almost sounding like we're going back to the way things used to be before we went through this third industrial revolution, if you will.
Right.
You know
That's
what?
right.
People survived for a reason, went through many hardships. Many people living in the US and Canada, all over the world. But you came to a land you didn't know.
Mhm.
You started with nothing. You worked together in a neighborhood and with love and support. And I
Mhm.
think people get hung up when they hear Christ consciousness, because
Mhm.
then you get other people that are very religious thinking that Jesus is returning to the earth. And you and I talked about this off the air.
Yeah, we did.
We don't know, maybe that might happen. It'd be great if it did, but we also have it all within us. Now, whether you want to call it the
That's right.
universe, whether you want to
Yeah.
call it whatever your belief system is, whether you want to
Yeah.
call it source, we
Yeah.
all have that inner love and divine spark, if you will, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that the thing that I like to say is, you know, we're going to talk about religion a little bit. If Jesus is who he says who he is, fantastic, wonderful. I'm all for it 100%.
Hmm.
But I'm going to behave and act like I got to save my own ass.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
And but if you think about it from like an esoteric perspective, what does Christ represent? Again, it represents the highest actualization of human perfection.
Hmm.
And so when you awaken the Christ within, when you allow the Holy Spirit to work with you, then you embody that and it projects into the world and then everything else falls into place. You
See,
meet your people.
I sometimes don't use the word. I understand why you do, because I know Zach asked
Mhm.
Don, he goes, "What's the opinion?" What I think he was talking about your opinion on Christ consciousness. But before you answer that,
Mhm.
um, I tend to stay away from labels just in case people.
Mhm.
I get what you're saying, and I would use
Yeah.
those words in
Yeah.
a conversation with you, because people get hung up on Christ consciousness. Like we had somebody, yeah, oh, this is all going to be about religion. I'm out of here.
Mhm.
No, it's not. You're here
It's really
for a
not.
reason, okay? Whoever you decide or believe in, who made you, they didn't just put you here for no reason.
Mhm.
And think the way I always put it is being raised Roman Catholic, for example. Do I subscribe to a religion anymore? No. But
Mhm.
if God is your father, I always say, and we all have a father, whether we know them or not, we do, a physical father. That's how we're here. And say you grew up in a family with a father or a mother that was whatever, parents, okay? Parents don't send you off to, I use the example, summer camp, most parents anyways,
Mhm.
and they don't send you off with what you need. And even if you don't have what you need, there are children that come from really literally nothing, but they're taken care of when they go there. All of your needs are met. We weren't sent here, put on this earth without everything that we possibly need. That's the way
That's
I
beautiful.
look like it. We
Yeah.
got that backpack, if you will. It's got
Yeah.
everything in it that we need. We just
Yeah.
got to unpack the backpack and know where the backpack is, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'm so glad that you said that because that's sort of why I'm just a big proponent for heaven on earth because the thing is that we have all the solutions that we need. It's not
Hmm.
just some practical woo woo feel good and everything's going to happen and fall into place. That's part of it, but we also have physical things. I literally interviewed somebody from this country that cured cancer, and I'm going to use the big bad C word.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not allowed to
Oh
say
yeah.
that. But I did.
No, I agree.
And they were actually arrested and thrown in jail
Yep.
for curing it without due process.
Mm-hmm.
I know people that have free energy devices. No, it's
Mm-hmm.
not free because you're being paid through subsidizing taxes. No, this is real. This is utilizing actual physics.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to look into a very reputable source, you can look at the Thrive 2 documentary that just came
Mm-hmm.
out. That actually came out like a year or so ago. But
Mm-hmm.
they interviewed this guy that's literally using physics to power um, free without using any types of energy or
Mm-hmm.
resources, power villages. We have
Mm-hmm.
free energy technology. We have the cures for cancer.
Mm-hmm.
But people have been stifled and afraid to speak because they've been silenced often through murder.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to have bravery. We need to be tough. And we just need to say, you know what? Enough is enough. I know these solutions exist. Let's make this accessible to the layperson. Let's create this and make it normal, because if enough people are talking about it as like a normal conversation, they're not going to silence everybody. They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
stop everybody. Right. And so
They
when you're
can't.
moving together, they can't. You can't. And so knowing and actually seeing and experiencing that these things exist and that these things are real, you
Mm-hmm.
can have that in your experience too. But the system that we're in has been created to keep that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
To, and that's why we need to get out of the system and create our own system by
Mm-hmm.
declaring that this is what we're going to do, and you need to go and physically do it. But here's
Mm-hmm.
the thing: you say, "What is my purpose?" Because the next summit
That's
that we're doing
important.
on finding and fulfilling your life's purpose, I'm going to tell you right now that your whole life's purpose is to be of the highest of love and service. That's the purpose. How you go about doing that is your own individuated expression of whatever you've been gifted as your human. And you can figure that out through natal charts or enneagrams or north nodes if you want more specific, or Myers-Briggs.
Dave Petrella here does those kind of things.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm going to say that's really simplistic till you meet up with someone like Dave or someone like Don or people that Don know is what I say to people is do what brings you joy. And then you get people that say, nothing brings me joy. Nothing. What brought you joy as a child?
Mm-hmm.
What brought a smile to your face when you did the work of a child, which is play? What were your dreams as a child? What did you think that you might have done? And you would be surprised how many people start to think, well, that's ridiculous. I did that as a child. Well, what's wrong with starting right there again? There's going to be nobody in your room when you decide to do whatever brings you joy, because
Yeah.
once we get into that frequency, now we have some good questions for you. We've got Zach's question, and then we've got Dave's that says, how does Christ relate to astrology for you, Dawn? So let's ask, are you okay with answering Zach's first? He said one question for you, for Dawn. What is your opinion on Christ consciousness? Have we got all night?
Well, that is a really good question, and I can't answer that. And the reason is because the expression Christ consciousness originated from the Theosophical Society.
Mm-hmm. You might as well go the whole gamut there, because we talked about this off air.
Yeah. So the Theosophical Society was an expressly Luciferian organization.
Mm-hmm.
In the writings of Helena Blavatsky and a lot of those people that were seen as Theosophists, they use the expression Christ consciousness, and they use the same expression, the New Age and Law of Attraction. All of those expressions came from a Luciferian organization.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know enough about what they mean specifically when they say the Christ consciousness, so I can't answer that question. I only have my own interpretation of what the awakening of the Christ means within my experience.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah, and I wish I could be more helpful. That's something I need to explore a little more into, as to the nuances of what does Christ consciousness mean? What does the Holy Spirit mean? What does Christ mean? What does Jesus Christ mean? What does Christ Jesus? And really getting into the nuances of all of what that means, if there is any difference.
You don't have to figure it all out. And I'm going to tell you, Don, I have a lot more respect for somebody that says I can't answer that, because you know what? It's a lot better than you sitting up here giving us some BS answer that that, yeah, maybe a lot of people might buy, but are you being genuine? Are you coming from highest service, from love?
Yep,
No, I have respect for, I mean, I've done that with people. If I, even my own kids, if I don't know the answer, I'll tell them I don't know the answer, but I
yeah,
will find out for you to the best of my ability, and we'll discuss it again. Now with Dave, because Dave's our astrology friend that I had on last week, he says, how does Christ relate to astrology for you, Dawn?
that is also a very interesting question. And I'm not an astrologer, and I am a novice when it comes to understanding astrology. Really, I have
Hmm.
very
I am
rudimentary.
too.
Yeah,
I am too. Hmm.
I will, however, point you in the direction of one of my personal mentors that is absolutely brilliant.
Hmm.
His name is Dr. Robert Powell,
Hmm.
and he has a PhD in the history of the zodiac
Hmm.
and has written specifically about that question.
Hmm.
Uh, he claims, I'm not saying that this is true or not, but this is what he claims. Um, there was a woman, I'm probably going to butcher this, in like the 1800s or something like that, and she was apparently having visions
Hmm.
of the days of the life of Christ on
Hmm.
earth. And there would be no way that she could account such detail. And she would actually say the specific dates of when these things were occurring according to the Jewish calendar.
Hmm.
Now, these were the writings, and she would be in this trance, and she would say these
Hmm.
things, and then people would be by and write these things, kind of like the Law of One, those kinds of things. And so she wrote these volumes of what she claims to be the days in the life of Christ, like actual
Hmm.
accounts. So Dr. Powell, he not only had a PhD in the zodiac, he also was a professor at probability mathematics
Hmm.
at a university in the UK. And so what he did was he went and he took all these writings and he backtracked all of the days and aligned that up with his understanding of the zodiac
Hmm.
and did probability mathematics to see how accurate her writings were. And the way that he explains it is much better than me, but it was almost a 99.9% accurate description as to the days in the life according to.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's like revolution. This guy's so smart, and he basically took the entire writings of that and wrote out astrological charts according to the visions of this woman. And he
Right.
wrote, I would argue, as his magnum opus called, it's called, what is it called? Chronicles of the Living Christ.
Hmm.
And so going back to your question about astrology, what Dr. Powell actually lives in this town. I know him personally. He's a friend of mine.
Hmm.
And Dr. Powell explained to me that every one of the miracles that had happened were astrologically aligned with what's called the galactic center, the central sun. And that
Hmm.
every type of amazing miracle that had happened, according to the astrology, was directly in conjunction with major astrological events that were going on, which I thought was remarkable that
Hmm.
he was able to figure this out. So, in terms of your question about what do I think of Christ in astrology, I think that other people argue, you'll have the whole zeitgeist movement of how Christ is actually just the actual physical sun, and that the dying and the resurrection of that is just a codification for astrology. I won't say no, that that's not a possibility. I think that that's a factor to it, and I think it's a
Hmm.
very important factor to it. But I'm not going to definitively say that that is the only thing. I think that within truth, there's many different nuanced layers of it. You have the most profound mystical, spiritual revelations of it, as well as the most gross physical expressions of it. And every one of them is equally valid, but they're expressed in a different way of understanding according to your level of consciousness and connection.
I
I
always
hope
say,
that answers your question.
or he'll let you know if it didn't. I was going to just say, I always say, I don't think any of us are going to know the answers 100%
Yeah.
until we transition, as I call it, going back home. Bob Vesey says, hello. Hello, Bob.
Hello,
Nice to see you here.
good to see you. Yeah.
Okay, Dave, well, listen to what Dave says. Dave says,
Sure.
great. Glad to hear you are open to it. So
Oh
there you
yeah.
go.
Of
Dave's a
course.
really nice guy. He's a
Yeah.
really nice
Awesome.
guy.
That's great. Yeah.
You guys will
So
have some interesting
yeah,
conversations, I'm sure, if I connect the two of you. Anyway, sorry, what were you going to say, Don?
I love to connect. Yeah. So I really do want to hit it home with what everybody's role is now of what's going
You're
on.
reading my mind because also want to mention about your summit that's coming
Yeah.
up too. We got about a half hour
Oh,
left. It
great.
goes
Yeah.
by
I'm
so
sure we
quick.
could talk. Oh, no. We could
Yes.
talk for hours. I remember when we first got on the call together, we just talked for hours and
Oh
hours.
my God. Yeah, same as with Dave. The first time I
Yeah.
talked to Dave, it literally 5 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds when we finally
Uh-huh. Yeah.
go ahead.
That's
We
amazing.
weren't much better. It was quite a few. I think you had to get up in the morning. That's the only reason why we cut it short.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Mhm. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
So I think the simplest thing to realize is that there's nothing to fear. And it's easy to say that, but when you know that your mind is extremely powerful, and that when you see the vision of the beautiful actualization of the peace and the safety and the harmony of not only your family but of the world unifying together to fight against evil, when you see that and that's what you operate on, that vision, everything will fall into place to help you. It always does. You just have to set your intention and say, what do I need to do right now?
What was the wording that you gave me? And I've been trying to remember it. I'm kind of made up my own version, but I've been trying it myself where you say that
Uh,
you're basically an open vessel
yeah,
to be open to basically love and the
yeah,
highest good of
yeah,
whomever.
yeah. So the prayer that I like to say every day is, let me be a divine empty vessel for the highest expression of love and service today.
Hmm. So you
And
put
I
that
don't,
intention out there.
you put that intention, you send that intention out there, and then you show up and you do it. I think one of the
Hmm.
biggest traps within the spiritual community is not actually doing something.
I know.
I think a lot of people think that by not participating in society or not participating into the matrix, that somehow you're helping, and you're not. You're actually doing people a disservice. The step
Hmm.
is to the step is to have the highest vision possible, which is the expression of love and service
Hmm.
at its highest possibility, and then physically go on the ground and do it. And you will be guided,
Hmm.
always, bar none. You will be guided, and you will know what to do.
Hmm.
So a good meditation that I like to do to kind of get this clarity, to get really clear on what this is. I think there's a author that probably a lot of people are familiar with. It's literally the exact same meditation. It's Drunvalo Melchizedek. Maybe you're familiar with. He wrote the book, the Secret Flower of Life. Um,
Sounds familiar.
yeah, it's a pretty distinguishable name. Anyway, so what he does is he there's a meditation where a lot of the times we focus on the presence and the consciousness within between our eyebrows.
Hmm.
And this is how we perceive our reality most of the time. So a lot of the times whenever we're trying to understand something and we're really engaged, we're kind of like this.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's almost kind of like we're like concentrating on this little
And
part of
then you
our,
get to my age and then you get
yeah,
permanent marks.
yeah, yeah. If you have permanent marks like this, that means you've been thinking too much.
Yes, exactly.
so, so, so what you do is you consciously within your mind, you focus this attention and you move it into the center of your head where your pineal gland is. And
Hmm.
you'll know if you're doing it right if it feels like there's kind of like a bowl being placed on your head.
Hmm.
And it kind of feels like there's like a little bowl. And then what you're going to do is you're going to move that attention into your throat. And it'll feel like there's a little lump on your throat.
Hmm.
And then you'll move that back here. You'll feel like there's a little bowl on your head. And then again, you're going to move it down past your throat and into your heart space. And I like to kind of envision that my intention is kind of slipping into the crack and the crevice of the heart
Hmm.
and being in that state of presence. And it's an incredibly still state, very profound. And you can stay in that state for hours and not want to leave.
Hmm.
And in that state, that's when you ask the questions, what do I do now?
Hmm.
And so that's when you can determine if it's coming from a very intense lines there.
I think
Yeah.
it's a woman thing, Kate, because most of us women
Don't
seem,
worry about it.
maybe it comes from just being a woman and a mom and a wife,
Don't
and I don't know. It seems like most women get them there, right there, the
worry.
11 lines.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So within that state, that's when you ask the question. And you know it's not coming from ego, you know it's not coming from scarcity. As far as I know, that is the most purest and highest intelligence that will give you the most beautiful and purest truth at that moment.
When I do Akashic Records
Uh,
readings, actual, usually I just pull everything in, and I know I've told you off air, but I actually guide the person I'm reading with to their heart space, not the heart chakra, the
mhm.
heart space. Because now, again, this is from my mentor and from what I have learned with my studies. Do I know everything? No. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But it's almost like it's the seat of the soul, if you will. It's the place where there's that ultimate love and being able to being able to access, if you want, your Akashic records. It's a beautiful space to be in. It's exactly what you've said, Dawn. It really,
Yeah,
really
it's
is.
truth. It's truth. It's clarity. It's information, and it's love.
Because I
And
started on, I just, sorry not to cut you off very quickly. I started on something earlier saying about that inner voice. Okay. The reason why you know it's not your ego, it's not your imagination, like I said, that moment of clarity when I said you don't have a solution, but it's worded a little differently than how you might normally word something. It's coming from a place of love. You just innately know it's the answer. And most people, what we do with the ego jumping in is we doubt ourselves.
mhm.
Try doing a little experiment, I always say, with
Yeah,
yourself, is
yeah,
just for one day, listen to your inner voice that seems to be of reason. Like, not the voice that might tell you something crazy, like go jump off the end of the bridge with the rest of the lemmings or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
but really comes from a place, it seems, it's common sense. And
Uh-huh.
instead of guessing, I think it's my imagination, or no, that's got to be coincidence.
Yeah.
Just try it for one day. Listen
How
to it
uh,
and see what happens. You will be amazed.
precisely. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's it. It's your intuition. It's yeah, it's yeah.
Hmm.
And when you set that intention, I'm telling you, everything will fall into place. And it might
Hmm.
not be the way in which you think
Yeah,
it's going.
don't put limitations or expectations. Like I say, when we're working with spirit, even
Yeah,
don't ever try and figure out how it's going to work out, because it will
yeah,
happen in the craziest, most imaginable way. Oh, hello, Sophie. She's coming to
yeah.
join us. My cat.
Invite.
I was going to say though, like it'll come from, you'll run into some stranger on the street
Uh-huh.
that's telling you exactly what you need to know or what place to go, and then you go there, and then you follow this, and you follow that, and you follow this. Right? That's what
That's
happens.
it. That's it.
Hmm.
That's exactly how it works.
Hmm.
And it's just having faith
Hmm.
that that's what's going to happen.
Hmm.
And again, God loves it when you take the leap of faith.
Hmm.
A lot of the times you got to take a leap of faith, and
I
everybody's
say jump and the net will appear. And I'm
jumping in
not
that will
saying
appear.
that because it's cliche. I am telling you because we need to trust. And if you don't trust, another thing I say is to go back through your life where you've been in a really crappy situation. We've all been there, okay?
Mhm.
And ask yourself, how either did I get out of it? Or when I thought, like I told you, I've been homeless, what happened? Was I homeless really? No, I had a place to go.
Mhm.
My kids had a place to go. This
Mhm.
fell into place exactly the way it needed to. We manifested exactly what I believe I wanted. I really do. And
Yeah,
I'm speaking from honest to goodness truth and honesty. Jump and the net will appear. We got to have
that's
that faith,
right. Yeah,
trust, and coming from a place of love. Like if you're
yeah.
going to go rob the guy down the street and move into his house or something, no, I don't think that's going to turn out too well for you. But
And that's how it works, not only for your own individuated life, but for
hmm.
the world as a collective. Because
Hmm.
if enough people are jumping and saying, "Holy crap, I need to do something about
Hmm.
this,"
Hmm.
then it will fall into place. And just to kind of give you an idea as to just how powerful love and service is, and when you're really
Hmm.
fighting for truth. Here in Ecuador, about because I live in Ecuador, about 5 or so months ago,
Hmm.
there was yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks,
Um,
Zach.
yeah, thank you, Zach. They we're trying to issue jab mandates to be able to come in
Oh,
to
you
different stores.
told me this. It's a good story.
This is very, very important to hear and to know just how powerful this is. They're, they were trying to implement this within the entire nation to make this happen. And in the town that I live in a very conscious community with very beautiful, amazing people that are fighting for humanity's well being. There were three people that got together with a lawyer and threatened. They didn't even sue. They threatened. They said, if you do this, there's going to be bad consequences and we're coming after you. And three people stopped an entire mandate from happening throughout the nation. Now, it's not to say that they're not going to keep it because they're trying it again, but it works in the same way. Three people stopped it from happening.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so mind-blowing. Three people that said enough is enough. I'm standing against this.
Mm-hmm.
And you, if you're listening right now, you could be that person that's reached the breaking point that says, enough of this. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this crap. I'm tired of feeling like I'm alone. I'm scared and I'm worried. You say, enough. I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to step up. And you say, what am I going to do right now? I'm going to reach out to every single one of my people in my neighborhood and say, I'm against this and I don't give two hoots what you think. And if you're on board, let's get together. Let's work together. Let's support each other. How can we grow food? Where can we go?
Yeah.
You know, your skills. Who can I connect you with? Because we need to get on the ground and do physical meetings with people and supporting each other physically and holding and touching each other physically and saying, I got you. I got you. And when enough people are doing that, when you are in that frequency of that warrior, that spiritual warrior, like I'm approaching this with love, but you ain't never going to stop me.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's really going to pick people up. And then people will say, okay, well, I'm getting together and we're gonna file a lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna stop this. Or if the police are harassing you at your house or whatever, you call all your neighbors and you say, I got the police harassing me, and a horde of 50 people shows up and demands that they leave. The police are going to leave,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it takes courage. It takes courage. You have to be a warrior. You have to be brave. You can't afford not to be.
A lot of
But
people are hearing this calling too, but they'll think, well, I'm just one person and I've met so many people. This is one of the most perfect times, for example, to start a podcast, to speak out, to use your voice if you feel
yes,
called to do it. Don't think who am I or who's going to listen to
no,
me. Don's
no,
no more special than I am or anybody else.
no.
We just decided to step up and we're going to do this.
I said
And
enough.
people are looking for places like we're on United Public Radio
Yep.
Network right now. There's people that do it on their own. But when you speak up and you speak with love and you speak with truth, I am telling you, people will find you. People are looking for this. And all it takes is one, because once one person is brave enough to step up, three more follow, and then three more follow, and then it becomes exponential. It really does happen.
Precisely.
Hmm.
And it is happening right now. I mean, what
Hmm.
you have a huge network of people that are listening right now. So
Hmm.
everybody that's hearing this, I pray that even if one person gets sparked by this conversation, that's
Hmm.
more than enough because I
Yeah.
know that they're going to spark other people.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
some of you that has such a great reach of people, they could reach other people that you're not reaching, that I couldn't reach.
Absolutely.
And they could connect with another person that's extremely um, powerful or wealthy
Hmm.
that is awakened. You don't know what you don't know. But if you
Hmm.
set that intention out of I'm here to be of service and love for the truth, no matter what, and I'm going to speak with bravery and do it every day of my life, I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. And
Hmm.
that there's nothing to fear. And there's thousands and thousands of people standing up against this. But you got
Hmm.
to keep in mind that the media is never going to show that to you.
Mm-mm.
And it's probably I used to live in China and I know just how horrible the Chinese Communist Party is. They have factories of phones where they're making fake
Mhm.
bot accounts to control the narrative of what people are seeing. Every time I get like an article on New York Times or something like that, everybody's like, yeah, you're an idiot if you don't do this, like be a good citizen, yada yada yada, all these things. And they might be real human beings, but it wouldn't surprise me if they're bots
Mhm.
waging spiritual warfare. Well, I guess, all these 20,000 people commenting on this are doing this. I guess I should do it too. Maybe I'm being crazy. It's like, no, no, stop. Shut it off. Like, it's wrong. Do the right thing. And don't give a crap what anybody else thinks. Now is not the time to worry about what other people think about you. It never was, but now it definitely isn't, because it
Mhm.
could cost you your life.
Mhm.
And then it kind of becomes fun. You're like, woo.
No, but then that's how you find your other people. Like
That's right.
I'm going to tell you guys, the person we're talking about, Juan Antonio Manzer. He's from Canada, like I am. He's in Ecuador. Somebody, because I have a network of people I talk to from around the world, somebody sent his video to me. This is how crazy this stuff works, okay? I listened to him for about 5 minutes because he goes live on his channel on Facebook. I went, I got to meet that guy. We're supposed to be working together. I met him. We talked, same thing. Like, Dave found me by accident one night. Like, what I'm saying is, it's not by accident. We're meant to meet these people that
Yes.
we meet. You're meant to be here tonight. And again, if this just sparks one person to step up, be brave, when you're coming from a place of love, when you're coming from a place of you're meaning nothing but the highest good for those that are around you, humanity, if you will,
Yes.
you
Yes.
can't go wrong. And
You
people
can.
will feel it. People will see it. People will be drawn to you. They won't know why they're drawn to you, but
Yes.
they will be drawn to you. You will find the people you are meant to find and the people you are meant to work
Yes.
with. Now,
Yes.
we only have a few more minutes. Let's talk about your World Summit. See how fast this goes by, Dawn?
Oh my gosh, I will keep talking. Well, it's really that easy. You say,
Mhm.
I need to be a divine vessel for the love and service. Please make me a magnet to every resource I need to be as much service and love as possible to humanity, and really, really make the impact.
Mhm.
And when you said that, it's like, sure, your wish is your command. Here you go.
Or
And then
speak from the heart. If you find that that's overwhelming, just speak your truth. Speak from the heart. Speak from
that's right.
love. You can't go wrong. You can't.
You can't.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you really can't.
Mhm.
And it's gonna work. It's literally, it's like, it's right there. It's just
Mhm.
three people stop the whole nation.
Mhm.
Think about that. Three people. Imagine what 30 million or 300 million people
Well,
can do.
everything's energy on this planet too. Like attracts like energy. People that are lower vibrational or some of that more negative stuff will fall away. And this
We
isn't
will.
just woo-woo crap that we're talking about. You guys can look this up
It,
yourself.
it's real. It's real. It's real.
Quantum physics is starting to prove a lot of this stuff. So look it
Absolutely.
up.
Absolutely.
Hmm. So let's talk
Yeah.
about your
Yeah.
summit. Well,
So
we
the
got a little
summit. Yeah.
bit more time. You
So the
settle
summit.
down.
So
Sorry, talking to my dog. My German Shepherd and my dog have decided to have World War III in here right now. They
there you
always
go.
do. They always show up on my podcast.
There you go.
Yeah.
Jealous. Wait, so how much more time do we have left? Just so I.
We started a little bit late, so probably about 5, 7 minutes.
Okay, cool, great, yeah.
Hmm.
So I've been working with this amazing woman that lives in town. Her name is Nori Huddle, and I hope that you can actually have her on your podcast at one
I'm
point
I'm
too.
hoping to. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so we've been working on something called the Global Domino Summit series. And we call it Help Tip the Global Domino Summit to Create Heaven on Earth. And the entire premise of our summit series is gathering the voices, gathering together thought leaders to be discussing practical, real, applicable solutions now to be able to create heaven on earth, and creating and
Hmm.
gathering a community of like-minded people that are trying to make this actually happen. And
Hmm.
so the last summit that we did was on healing global trauma. And we
Hmm.
had experts from all over the world dealing with how to heal trauma on like a physical level and
We didn't even get into that tonight
we
because
didn't get
that's
into that.
another
Yeah,
big piece too.
yeah. And then so the next one that we're having, and we just set a new date to it. It's December 21st, which was intentionally selected because that's the darkest night of the year,
Hmm.
which I think is a little bit fun. But
Yeah.
so this one's on finding and fulfilling your life's purpose.
Hmm.
That's what a lot of people are asking. They're like, what do I do in this day and age to find and fulfill your life's purpose? So we have some amazing speakers coming on, some conscious entrepreneurs doing amazing things. We have interviewed one entrepreneur who she sold a six-figure business at 12, and now she's 14 and she's an international
Oh,
speaker.
I bet you I know who this is because I've seen this young
Haley
girl,
Swan.
I think.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
her
So
name?
we Hannah Swan.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
And so she's one of our speakers, and we have a lot of other conscious entrepreneurs doing really
Mhm,
amazing things. So they actually have done something amazing, and they have something to show for. You know,
mhm,
there's money, there's people following them. So we are amalgamating them together and offering to give the information and the knowledge and the insights that these amazing people have had to our audience.
mhm,
And if you and that's actually going to be free to view
mhm.
for the first 24 hours after it's
Right,
released. So for you have a 24-hour viewing, it's going to be a 3-day summit. But if you are worried that you're not going to be able to see it, or maybe you're on the other side of the world and you're like, oh, it'll be 2 a.m. when that's being released,
right.
you can purchase what's called the all access pass, which actually gives you a VIP call to get on a call with me and Nori and some of the other speakers to help
Mhm.
you specifically individually try to figure out what you.
Nice.
So it's amazing. I mean, some of these people have done $1 million in sales in 10 months and have started these incredible world changing businesses. I mean, it's like talking to some of the most brilliant minds in the world. It's like it's amazing. It's an amazing
Mhm,
opportunity. Yeah. So that's part of what I'm working on now as a project. But I also, if you thought what resonated with you, or what I talked about with on the podcast today, you could also message me personally. You can find me on Instagram at becoming the divine vessel,
mhm.
um, or you can just email me or Facebook me. It's just being linked on Facebook, right?
Yeah, because I still had people every time I put my podcast, I can't
Yeah.
find your show. I
Yeah.
promote my show with the banner
Uh-huh.
everywhere, my personal, my
Yeah.
private accounts. I have all the links, just if you're listening, so you guys know, always in the middle. I know it's a longer post,
Uh-huh.
but right in the middle, it will tell you every Facebook page, the Twitch account, all of our YouTube channels. I'm trying to think where else. Anywhere you can watch a show live,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I will have the links on there. But just so you know, anybody that listens to this, we are carried probably, I think it's like 150, 200 different places, but we're carried wherever there are podcasts or talk radio. Our
Mhm.
shows are carried. So people can find it iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, Podbean. I'm
Awesome.
probably missing a ton. So you can find them. Mhm.
That's great. Yeah, awesome. So if you liked what I had to say, I genuinely care about everybody that comes to me and asks me questions. I'm an open
Mhm.
book. I'm more than happy to talk to you, to see, to try to figure things out with you, um, just to be of service
We
and
might
help.
even have you on if you have time. I know you're crazy busy like I am, but maybe just before the summit or after, so that you can kind of drum up and let people remind people that it's out there too. It doesn't hurt to have it from another. And you've been on here. There's so many things we didn't talk about tonight that we could have.
Oh man, we can talk about so many things.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. And
Great.
I want to thank you for being here. Like I said, you guys are going to see Dawn again. And also, please know anybody that you've ever wanted to reach, and people usually do, they'll message me too and ask me, how do I get a hold of your guest that was on the other night? So
Yeah.
they'll also do that.
Oh, great.
So
Yeah. Great.
I
Yeah.
want to thank you for being here. Did you mention your YouTube channel? I don't know if you did.
Yeah, yeah.
Did
My
you?
my YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. I talk about esoteric concepts, and I interview extremely interesting people. I interviewed somebody that died multiple times and recalls the afterlife, or another person that
Hmm.
was curing cancer. As I said before, I interviewed them and stuff. So
Hmm.
I find extremely interesting people like you, and
Well, thank you.
I interview them. Yeah. So that
Hmm.
that's also becoming the divine vessel. You can find that
Hmm.
on YouTube too.
Yeah, so you guys can find him all over, and he is very accessible. And like I said, he's got a wealth of knowledge. I think he's an old soul, definitely, being as young as you are and having the knowledge that you do.
I'm tired of this planet.
No, no, we
Get
still
out of
need you here. We
here.
still need you here. Well, that is one thing we didn't get into, guys. We go on forever. You may not believe it, but we go on forever and ever and ever and ever. That's a whole different show. But I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
thank you all for being here always and for supporting us. Thank you for the great questions that people asked in the audience, and for listening. I want to tell you, I will be back next Monday, same time, same space. So 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I forgot what the time change. Um, and next week, we're delving into the deep, dark paranormal because I got a hold of a very good friend of mine I've been trying to have on for a long time, Rocky Gates. He's with Chill Seekers. He lives in Las Vegas. He has his own, or at least he did. I haven't caught up with him lately, but he had his own little kind of haunted museum. He knows the guys from Ghost Adventures and what have you. I told him to bring some scary EVPs and pictures and video clips
Oh,
and all kinds of stuff. So he'll be
cool.
here next week. And then the week after, I have to tell you about this lady because she was just on the Dell show, my partner. Her name is Marielle. Marielle, I can see her name, Ford Clark from Ireland. She's had a near death experience. This lady is absolutely phenomenal and amazing. So I got some more great guests coming up for you guys. Ever want to
That's
get a
awesome.
hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. I have 2 groups on Facebook too. I have Paranormal University for all things paranormal. And then we have the Angel Rocker Tribe for more of the things that we talked about with Dawn tonight. I want to send you all so much gratitude for being here, as well as love and light. Thank you again, Dawn. It was a pleasure
Thank
to
you
have
so
you
much
on. Can't wait
for
to have
everything.
you on again.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I can talk about this all the time.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, I will let you know. Rabble Rousing, Pleiadian Dragon /Lion said thank you. It was an interesting show. Have a safe and happy evening. The same to you.
Thank
And we
you.
will see you all next week. Much love, guys. Mwah. See you then.
Bye bye.